In the not-so-distant future, one of the main energy sources powering your home could be located more than 25 miles offshore. The goal set by the Biden administration seeks to power more than 10 million homes by the end of the decade. It's part of an overall plan to cut carbon dioxide emissions.
We're standing at an inflection point in world history. We have the ability to invest in ourselves and build an equitable, clean energy future, and in the process, create millions of good-paying jobs and opportunities around the world.
The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, which is now law, provides money to pursue those goals at a more accelerated pace. $65 billion will go specifically to clean energy transmission and the electric grid. Some states are already implementing renewable energy sources. Virginia-based Dominion Energy launched an offshore wind pilot program over the summer and is now moving forward with a large-scale commercial wind project.
Yes, so the pilot program, the total rating of the project is 12 megawatts, whereas the commercial project will be 2,600 megawatts. So that 12 megawatts at peak output powers 3,000 homes in our Virginia service territories, whereas that 2,600 megawatts will power up to 660,000 homes at its peak output.
These pilot turbines are the first built in federal waters, and just one rotation of those arms could power a home for an entire day.
It's a nice complement to solar power. So solar power will produce the most energy like in the middle of the day in the summer. That'd be actually when we have the lightest winds for offshore wind. But then in the nights and in sort of the winter portion of the year, you're getting more power out of offshore wind. It sort of ebbs and flows almost opposite the solar power.
Fossil fuels will remain part of the larger power generation mix as a reliable backup. But when the clean sources are producing, they'll knock the fossil fuels out, helping to reduce the state's carbon footprint. Experts say it's important for the Biden administration to stick to this slow phasing in of renewables, especially for consumer acceptance. If the old supply goes away too fast, while demand stays the same, prices would skyrocket. We're seeing some of that right now at the gas pump. During the pandemic, oil production decreased because people weren't traveling. When restrictions eased, people started moving again, while production stayed at pandemic levels.
Fuel prices, our pump prices, is the most transparent energy price consumers, voters see, and they see it every day. You drive down the road. And so nothing kind of makes you angrier is when you have to pay, 30% or 40% more for the same thing that you were paying just, a few months before. So you see this juxtaposition on wanting to move forward and transitioning, but also how to do that in a way that doesn't harm consumers, harm voters.
Frank Fannin served as the Trump administration's top energy diplomat. He now runs an advisory firm focused on all aspects of the energy transition. One thing he says needs much more focus is the critical minerals required to make clean energy happen.
Wind turbines and solar panels just don't show up. They have to be created. And there's an entire supply chain, and there are minerals and metals that go into that supply chain to realize these clean carbon-free forms of energy. The U.S. isn't in control of that supply chain today. China is.
The Trump administration sought to create an alternative supply chain. The goal? Avoid more reliance on our greatest competitor, ensure the clean energy is developed in a manner upholding U.S. values, and remains attractive to investors who value human rights, environmental protections, and transparency. The Biden administration has continued this approach. Fannin says the next step would be using funds from the new infrastructure bill towards accelerated development of mining in North America.
You can't get to the clean energy transition without metals and mining. You can't get there. So we have to deploy this money in a way that makes sense and get some real returns, which means building stuff.
There are also efforts underway to reshore major manufacturing facilities so that we aren't having to import the parts that make up things like wind turbines and solar panels. The new infrastructure bill offers manufacturing tax credits and also cuts through some red tape, like permit decision-making, to speed up the timeline for how long new projects will take to complete. Caitlin Burke, CBN News.